So we're going to talk about running comps and numbers, okay? The reason I wanted to talk about this is that I get people forwarding me deals, mostly from wholesalers, all the time that have raise your hand if you've seen this. They don't like to say the ARV on stuff, it seems like a lot anymore, or like what their rehab guess is. They just tell you that the spread's 150,000 or 200,000 or something like that. Has anybody seen those emails? Okay. What do you, help me out here. What do you like when you see that, when you see like a $200,000 spread, what's your first thought? What was that, Jeff? Tear it up. Yeah? Yeah, that's the presentation. Who else? First thoughts? What's that? Double check your comps. Yeah, but like when you see that spread, like $200,000 is a lot, right? That's how much money you're going to make, right? No? How much you think you're going to make? Maybe half? That's the... All right, remember you said that. All right, so, and when I was first getting started on this, too, like when I was learning how to flip and whatever, $200,000 seemed like a lot. Like if it was, you saw that $700,000 house or $900,000 house for $700,000, and you're like, oh, there's $200,000. I got, I put like 50 into it or 70 into it, and I'm going to make 120. No? Brandon's shaking his head at me. No? Rafa, what do you think? Got to be around 50 sight unseen? Okay. So our goals tonight here is to understand spreads a little bit, and I didn't finish putting number 2 here, I guess. Number 2 is that we are going to dive into how to look at comps, okay? And we're going to try and look at comps as though we are, think like an appraiser, okay? And we'll get into that a little bit more. So I want you guys to understand spreads a little bit. This is a bird's eye view, okay? Like nothing in here is like an absolute. The main thing here is that it depends, okay? It depends on more than just a $200,000 spread, okay? It depends where it is. It depends how much it costs, all that stuff, okay? So it depends. This is just some examples on how to help you guys out and show you how these numbers work a little bit better, okay? So let's talk about spreads. Is $200,000 enough? Any questions before we get started? All right. Like I said, it depends. Okay, so let's look at a $350,000 house. Okay, so a $200,000 spread at that would be a $300,000 house. If we're talking, when I say I put $300,000 house. If that's a $300,000 house, and you can get it for $100,000, you have a $200,000 spread. Is that enough? It depends. What does it depend on? Rehab, I heard rehab. Carrying costs. Anything else? Your competency. Closing costs. Escrow costs. Anything else? Accuracy of the ARV, that's a good one. How long it takes you? Yep. So it's a $300,000 house. Sorry, I put $350 on there. So this is how your numbers would break down on that deal. That would be your kind of true numbers. All right, so you'd have your ARV up there at the top. So you'd have your ARV up there at the top. Okay, so $300,000. Your purchase, $100,000. Okay, we're going to skip spread for a second. You have an $80,000 rehab. Now, if you're getting a $300,000 house for $100,000, I'm going to assume it's pretty jacked up. Okay, so 80 might not even be enough, but that's the number we're going to roll with for right now. Okay, $80,000. Your hard money, if you borrowed the $100,000 purchase price and the 80 at 10 and 2, okay, so that's 10% interest and 2 points. Okay? And I assume that you did it for 6 months. Okay? And there's some change in these numbers, okay? They're not going to work out to be like perfectly even on your spreadsheet, but I'm trying to make this a little bit more simple, okay? Agents, I figure about 5%. That's 2.5% each side, okay, for your buying agent and your selling agent, or 3 and 2 for your buying agent, or for your selling agent, and 2 for the buying agent, however you want to work that out. Okay? If you pay your agent a little less, whatever. 5%. Title and escrow, about 5%. Okay, for your escrow fees. All in all, for agents, title, escrow, selling costs, I call it, you can just group that together, about 10%. Okay, that's buffered a little bit. It's a little bit higher than maybe it would work out to be if you get an escrow company that you get, some discounts with or whatever. You could get that down a little bit. But 10% for that, and then I put in a 5K miscellaneous, okay? And that is insurance, taxes, property taxes, anything that kind of pops up, okay? So, you're on those numbers, your gross profit at the end of that would be about $74,000. Who wouldn't mind making $74,000? For those of you that have your hands down, what would you like to make? If not $75,000. $100,000? Ricardo doesn't get out of bed for $100K, unless it's $100K. I like it. You got to have goals, man. There's got to be a line. And a 60% return is not enough. All right, so let's look at this. So 75K, okay? What I say is it depends, okay? When you're talking about a $300,000 house, that'd be a 200K spread is great, right? Okay. Now let's look at a $650,000 house. I think I got the numbers right on this one. Yep. So $650,000 house, you're getting it for $450,000. Okay, you still got a $200,000 spread, right? Everybody following me? Any questions? Okay. Now, let's look at those numbers. All right, so we're going to do, again, our ARV of $650,000. Okay, our purchase was $450,000, which leaves us a $200,000 spread. And I'm going to assume we're going to have the same $70,000 rehab. Okay, and I'm only assuming that for the argument of this conversation. We'll get to that in a second. Hard money, 10 and 2. You'll notice that number is slightly bigger than the last example. Why is that? Because it's a greater loan amount. 10% on $170,000 is, or $180,000 is a lot lower than 10% on $520,000. Again, we're borrowing, for the sake of this argument, we're just borrowing the whole thing, okay? So we're borrowing the purchase price and we're borrowing the rehab, okay? So your hard money cost, again, we're assuming 6 months that it's going to take you, $36,000, $32,500 for agents, $32,500 for title and escrow. Yeah, you're right. I think I doubled that. This is what happens when I put a presentation together an hour before the meeting. Hang on one second. That was going to be my next point. So, yeah. Yep. Hang on one second. What did I do? I want to know. 1, 2, 3 times 0.05. Yeah, that is a little high. What do you think that should be? Where'd you go, Jenny? Oh, you sat down. What is the percentage of title and escrow?
So when you're buying a house, you're only paying title fees on the lender policy. Then you're going to get a binder policy, which is 10% of the owners. And then when you resell it, you're only paying as if you are selling for $200,000 in this case, right? So
No, you're selling for $650,000.
I know, but with a binder.
Oh, yeah, on your binder. Yeah, sorry.
Right, 450 to 650, so we consider it 200,000, which is probably $1,100.
Okay.
Right, plus your lender fee, which is maybe $700. So call it $2,000.
Yep.
Escrow, it's not that much.
Yeah, escrow would probably be like, what, 2?
Less, it'd be like 80 for
Depends who you use. So I have an escrow company that charges me $350 per transaction as the seller. Okay, I've had other escrow companies charge me $2,000 as the seller or as the buyer. Typically, if I'm buying a property, they've already opened escrow. I don't have a choice. But no, that title and escrow number is completely wrong. I apologize. Okay, My point of this was going to be that $70,000 on a $650,000 house probably isn't all that realistic. I was trying to keep this consistent, okay? So if we assume that that rehab number is about $30,000 higher, we're looking at a gross profit of $23,500, okay, at the end of all this. Now, I don't want you to get too hung up on the numbers. The point of this is that you are within a very small margin of error at a $23,000 profit. Okay, that is one price reduction. Like let's say let's say you list the house for $650, and then you have to drop it to $630 to get a seller. Anybody seen a lot of price drops out there in the market? When's the last time anybody in this room sold a house exactly what they rented it for? Listed it for, sorry. Did I say rented? Yeah, we did. Yeah. Pat, Brandon, you did? You just did on your personal house. Yeah. 25,000 over asking. There you go. Let's go. Nice. But there's a lot of price drops out there. Okay, so if you don't hit your number, you're off by $23,000. Who would do that deal on a $23,000? Not at all. Not a chance. Yeah, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. So you could see the difference on a $200,000 spread when you go up to a higher number that evaporates very quickly. Okay? Now, let's talk about a $950,000 house. Okay? Again, $950,000, you can buy it for $750,000, it's $200K. $200K spread. Okay? And I did the same thing. You know, I got to check AI sometimes. $950,000, about $70K rehab. I actually put it in here that is highly unlikely. Okay? On $1 million house, which doesn't even sound that impressive anymore. Everything's $1 million house. But you get me. You know, if it's $1 million house in Orange County, I mean, it's your pretty much middle of the road, regular 3-2 house in Orange County nowadays. But you're probably still going to put a little bit nicer finishes in than you're going to put in a 3-2 in San Bernardino. Okay? The Home Depot cabinets might not cut it at that point, but we'll see. So $70K is unlikely. And again, you know, we messed up the title and escrow numbers around there. So at best, okay, if we take $30,000 off that title and escrow number and give it back to the gross profit, at best you're losing $2,000 instead of making anything. Anybody want to lose $2,000 on a flip after 6 months? Now, I've always said if you can get out of a flip without losing money, you won. Okay, but I don't want you to make a habit of it. Okay, the idea here is to make money off this. Okay, so like I said, it depends. Okay, a $200,000 spread on a $300,000 house, yeah, you can make a lot of money on that. Okay, but I've seen way too often where these wholesalers will send out emails for, you know, stuff here in Riverside even that's an $800,000, you know, they put the ARV in there as like $720,000 and they want $600,000 for the house. And the reason I'm up here today because somebody buys those. And I don't know who they are or how they're making money. Maybe that's not their plan. Maybe they still have some tax strategy that, you know, they just need to bury a lot of money. I don't know. Do you know anybody that's bought one? Ray, you bought one?
No. There was a guy across the street from one of our properties that bought one, and what he did was first of all, he was a contractor, so that cut his labor costs
Yep.
down.
Yep.
And the second thing is he held it for rental.
Held it for rental? Okay. He held it. How much was the house?
$700,000.
And did it rent for, how much do you think that house would rent for?
$5,000. Because he split it up.
He split it up and it still only made $5,000?
Yeah. That's my guess.
So you bought it for $7,000? You know how much you put into it? I mean, I guess if you split it up, probably $2,000, at least. Yeah, that wouldn't pencil for me, but, you know, so the other thing here, guys, is like this doesn't work for me, and this is what I've always kind of wondered with the wholesalers. Like, who's buying these? Either you have no idea what you're looking at when it comes to your numbers, or you have, like I said, there's some kind of other strategy involved. Which is a possibility. Like I had, there's some houses up in Crestline that I had my eyes on for years, and people had bought them. People bought them in like 2017, 2018. These little 1-1 cabins up around the mountains, and they got them for nothing. They got them for like $40,000-$50,000. But then they just sat there. They just sat there and got even worse. They were in rough shape to begin with. And then some of them are still sitting there. And then one that I was like, are they ever going to do anything to that house? And I just happened to drive by after months of not driving by it, and it was completely rehabbed and it was on the market. So, and they did it it seemed like in 3 weeks. So I guess they had the ability. So there's other strategies out there. But what I want to show you too is so assume this number turns to 0, okay? Because I screwed up that number. So assume that number turns to 0, okay? And you're just even. Now, if you are somebody that has your own money, okay, you could cross out that line right there. And if you are your own agent, also, you could take about half of that line too. And you could turn this number into about $75,000. Again, this is all going perfectly. Okay? So if you have deep pockets and you are also your own agent, it is possible. Okay? Or, so one of the a club member actually, and I was grilling her on her numbers, put together for like an $800,000 house in Redlands. She had a $40,000 rehab. And that was including replumbing the entire house with PEX. And I was just like, so all new paint, all new flooring. She'd done like five other projects. And her rehabs were gorgeous. I mean, they looked fantastic. And I was like, look, I don't doubt that, that you have the ability. I'm just questioning how you're doing that level of rehab for like $25 a square foot. I was like, I couldn't do that in 2017. And again, part of due diligence and all that. And just basically she has crews that'll, so that they make a lot of money on some, and then they'll do some other stuff for costs. But her square foot number basically worked out to be like $2 a square foot. I'm like, you can't even buy flooring for $2 a square foot, let alone they're going to install it for free, right? So, if you can, if you got some contractors in your back pocket that on a certain deal, they can, they're fine with throwing you a freebie, I guess, because you just keep them busy, or you have people on payroll. Let's say you are a contractor, then when your cost is going to cut in half, you can take a $100,000 rehab and turn it into 50. Now, I think that's a little dangerous, especially for people that are their own contractors, because most of the time they still got a crew that they have to pay, so it's not going to be like, that cheap. But if they're by themselves and they're just their own, they can just do a lot of work themselves. I personally, unless they have the deep pockets to go with it, they're most likely going to be, in my opinion, whatever they're saving in labor costs, they're just throwing away in holding costs because it's going to take them that much longer. And it's going to even out at the end of the day or get pretty close. Because if you got $5,000 a month in carry and you're saving, it takes you a